Welcome to the show. I wanted to have my two guests here today because so many people in the audience of this show are avid hikers right here in the Wenatchee Valley, throughout the state of Washington and throughout the country. Today's guests are Amber and Josh, and they are the authors of Discovering the Appalachian Trail. And I wanted to have you both here today because you have insights that many people would never know, even in the history of knowing about the trail, but also just your personal connection to it. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you both being here. Yes, so let's get started. And I just wanted to start by perhaps asking you to talk about the trail, the Appalachian Trail, the People's Trail, it's called, for those who may not know much about it at all, the history of the trail, how it got started, and then later how it became part of your radar, part of something you wanted to do.
Yeah, so the Appalachian Trail is now 100 years old. Benton Mackay is the founder, the father of the Appalachian Trail. He had this dream, this vision in 1921, I think October, of connecting the northern states with the southern states. So the trail stretches from Georgia to Maine. It's over 2,100 miles long, and people complete it in one go, which is a through hikes. They can start from Georgia to Maine, or they can do section hikes or day hikes. And at the time that it was created in the 20s, America was going through a rough patch, I like to call it. There was war, and there was this divisiveness, this depression, lots of doom and gloom. So Benton's idea was that he wanted to get people out of the cities and back to nature for healing purposes. And it wasn't just this trail, that his vision was way more extraordinary. And it was about connecting these farm and food camps and really just getting people back to the land. So it's just interesting now that we kind of find ourselves in that similar time in America with the pandemic, and people are escaping more to the wilderness. So it's kind of a beautiful thing to see his vision start to really unfold continuously.
And the huge part of it back then too was to get people jobs, coming out of the Depression around the wartime. The New Deal took place. This was one of the projects that gave people jobs to go out there and build this thing.
Yeah, so it's called the People's Trail for partly that reason, because the people really did get out there and they made the trail, and they
And based on where we are today, it just shows that his vision is timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we're all
absolutely.
getting back to that point in our lives. Okay, so let's talk to Amber. I know that you grew up in the foothills of the Smokies. I visited the Smokies in the 2019 tour, and it was some of the most beautiful area of the country I've ever seen. And so you grew up knowing about the trail. One part of the trail isn't far from your home. Did you always want to be part of the trail? Did you want to be a through hiker? What was your experience growing up with it?
Right. So yeah, I'm so lucky to have grown up to where I was. I was in the foothills of the Smokies near Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And I like to say that I started hiking before I could walk, because I was on my parents' backpack, hiking the trail. My dad is an avid outdoorsman, so it was always his dream since he was 13 years old to through hike the AT. And it didn't really come into my orbit until later when I was in my 20s, and it really kind of dawned on me like, oh, I could go backpacking too, because we would always go out, car camping with the family, and lots and lots of day hikes. But anyway, we were out on a birthday trip, me and him, and listening to the Backpacker Get Out More tour at the Nanahala Outdoor Center. And I was listening to this lady describe how to pack a pack properly. And she really inspired me to be like, okay, I can go backpack. And that's when I told Dad, like, I want to go through hiking with you. So we spent the next 4 years, this was in 2010, preparing for our hike. And then we set out on a southbound journey. So we started in Maine and went down north and made it as far as McAfee Knob. So we attempted a through hike, but we had to get off for family illness. So we were on the trail for about 4 months, and it was a wonderful, awesome journey.
Well, and you, Josh, what was your connection to the trail? Where did you grow up, and when did it become part of your radar, or something that you wanted to do as well?
Yeah, I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, just outside of it. My grandfather used to take me camping, and my mom was an avid outdoorsman of sorts. She was a rock climber, and we were always doing this kind of stuff. So it wasn't afraid of it. And when I was a kid, my grandfather just told me a story about Bill Irwin, who was a blind person who hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. And I didn't know what the Appalachian Trail was, and he explained it all to me. And it always just embedded in my brain, because I think for years after that, just as a little kid, just thinking what it would be like to hike a trail that's 2,000 miles long blind, just with a service dog. Of course, you'd start to realize after you've done it that surely you had some help, right, of some kind. But
Yeah.
it was always something I toyed with in my brain. And when I got older, a friend of mine, Jared Sims, wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and he went on the Appalachian Trail to spend time alone out in the woods to get ready to go for training. And in that time, he invited me and a couple of my friends out there when we were like 19 years old. And that spawned us doing month-long section hikes where we go on the AT every year during the summer for like 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And then the Taka thru hikes happened. Then I went off to art school to get a photo degree and realized that I wanted to do a thru hike and make a photography book as my thesis, basically, for school. And it's the first thing I did when I left school. In 2013, the year before Amber, I did a thru hike. And then post thru hike, selling my artwork at Trail Days, which is the annual reunion of the Appalachian Trail in Damascus, Virginia. I got set up across from Amber, who was there selling her stuff. And
Literally set up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we met. So
Yeah.
So you met through the trail. And so you did your through hikes separately before you'd met, and then you met, and now you're a family and have a couple of kids even.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about just the things that you learned from the trail and more about your book. It's absolutely beautiful. It has pretty much everything anyone could want from it. I'm going to show the trailer here so people can get a better idea of what we're talking about. We'll be back in just a moment.
The Appalachian Trail, in a lot of ways, is a magnet for all sorts of things. It's kind of like the great attractor. For us, it's been responsible for bringing us together with our community. Amber and I meeting at Trail Days in Damascus, Virginia. It led us out here to our homestead here in Madison County. This was a great place for us to focus on the trail and really dive into everything to be able to write a book of this expanse.
I think the Appalachian Trail really helped me rediscover belonging, and it aligned me back with my path of connecting with the natural world. There's a saying on the AT, once you have some sort of experience with Appalachian Trail, you're always on trail. You have this sense of still being on the trail, or that you left a little piece of yourself on the trail. So there's this feeling of like, I'm always on the trail's always with me, so I can't really separate my creativity from the AT at this moment in time.
From an outsider's perspective, if you haven't spent any time on the trail, you wouldn't really know how many towns are involved and how much community is involved and how much history is involved and the personal journeys. I mean, there's so much, it's a pilgrimage for so many people, especially here in America. This book really reveals all the layers.
Just the whole idea of this footpath that connects 14 states, that was created and born out of struggle. I think the main thing that we were hoping for when we start putting pen to paper on this book was to capture the whole spirit of the Appalachian Trail, the essence of the wildness, not just the hikes, little blurbs about community and plants and shelters.
There's hopefully a need on some level for a book out there that really expresses all this stuff. And I'm hoping that anybody that gets our book can really learn something.
For anyone that has never heard about the Appalachian Trail, I hope this gives them that hiking fever to get out there on their own. For those that know about the Appalachian Trail, that have been on the Appalachian Trail, day hike, through hike, section hike, I hope it gives them a little taste of nostalgic wonder. Really, we wanted people to know that this trail is so vast and there's so much to discover.
We're here talking with Josh and Amber Niven. They are the authors of Discovering the Appalachian Trail, the People's Trail. You gave us a good description of the trail and its history in our first segment. And now I wanted to talk about something. I am not an avid hiker, but I do hike. And you said something I was reading some of the beautiful writings on your website, Amber, and you talk about the phrase that is shared amongst hikers. It's called embrace the suck. And so, and that that you're going to get up into frozen boots and you're going to have swollen ankles and you're going to have sore toes and all the things that go along with it. So what about that idea of embracing all parts of it, even the hard parts? Did you really, both of you, each of you separately, have to confront right away thinking, okay, well, this is, you're however many hundreds of miles in, then you're thinking this is more than we even could have imagined.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So just so much.
Where
so
do you
many memories
begin?
come back to me about like, I just did not expect to not like hiking so much. It's a lot of being uncomfortable. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of like, you're exposed to the elements. So my first weekend, I didn't pack enough food through the 100-mile wilderness. I was hungry. There were black flies. So I was literally had all my rain gear on at one point, like in the middle of summer, sweating just because I didn't want to get eaten by black flies. So yeah, the first couple of northbounders we saw just passed by would be like, they've been through a lot more, and they would say, embrace the suck. And yeah, I heard it over and over, and I was like, yeah, that's what you got to do. And even in life, right afterwards, I'm always finding myself, it got me through postpartum depression. It was just like, this is life. Like you have to learn to embrace it. And Josh always says, like, lean into it, lean into that discomfort, because if you don't, you're just numbing out, and that's not living, and we want to live. So
yeah, the pain and the balance of the both, right? That's where we grow, is when we're uncomfortable physically, I suppose, and emotionally in all the other ways. Josh, how about for you?
Yeah, for me, quite different. I'd spent I'd already done 1,000+ miles on the AT and spent lots and lots of time out there. So I was expecting everything physical, none of the bugs, none of the weather, none of that was a problem. We were prepared for all of that and been doing it for years. For me, it was the mental stuff, setting into boredom. I mean, hiking through the woods all day long in a green tunnel is boring a lot of the times, and it's slow, and you have to learn how to downshift into a slower pace lifestyle. Just sitting on the side of the road waiting for a hitch into town, sitting on the side of the road waiting for a shuttle, sitting everywhere all the time waiting for something. For me, that's the part I wasn't expecting, was just how kind of repetitive things would get. Of course, that changes throughout the trail. You get through the middle section of the Appalachian Trail from Northern Virginia to Vermont, basically, you're seeing a lot of the same stuff. There's some little highlights throughout, but you're just in a green tunnel because it's middle of summer. And so, trying to convince yourself to make sure to go to every vista you possibly can, because a lot of the times those are 0.2 off trail or 0.1, and you're just walking this tunnel and always fighting the brain. So that was my embracing the suck was a lot to do with mental growth and just accepting things and all of that.
Well, Amber, you went approximately 1,400 miles into the through hike. How far did you do? Did you go the whole way, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. I was out there doing a production called the Thru Project. It's actually the backbone of what this book is visually. I was out there carrying 15 pounds of camera gear. My 3 other friends were with me. We had pre-planned food. They were carrying camera gear. I was making an artistic kind of coffee table book, which was actually what was used to kind of show to publishers and stuff to eventually help us get a deal, along with her writing, to do this book with Falcon. And so there was no way. We crowdfunded some to do it. And we had people following us, and there was no way I wasn't going to finish. So we did it. It took a while. We were a little over 7 months, which is a little bit longer than most. Yeah.
So a lot of seasons then as well.
Yeah, I was waist deep in snow 3 weeks into my hike.
Wow.
And full blown.
There's really no way to avoid the winter. If you're going to try to go through the entire hike, you can't avoid winter.
Well, people get lucky. It depends.
They ski hike.
People who are, if you want to get really specific, you can start in late March, and you're carrying 25-pound ultralighter who is a runner, and not literally running, but doing it fast. There are people who get through it without too much winter. It's possible, but
not for the average.
But that's not fun, So you don't want to go that fast. You know what I mean? Not me.
Well, let's talk about the book, Discovering the Appalachian Trail. So it is, well, you describe it. I've found it to be a mix of just beautifully written, as you mentioned, Amber's a talented writer, and then the photography, of course, that you contributed, and just even the bits of history at different parts of the trail, and the communities and the little towns and the people that you met along the way. What was the most impactful of the things, the people that you met that you didn't expect to meet, and how important was it to share that in the book?
Yeah. Oh, everything. We wanted our book to be as much like a through hike as possible. So it was important for us to have that all in there, not just the hikes. The people is a huge part of it, especially because that is our community. We're hikers. And, yeah. So the plants, the animals, the history.
It's an armchair through hike. I mean, we have 450 images in here that are in sequential order of the entire trail. We were very specific of trying to keep things in order. So when you open this book, you can experience the whole AT, learn about what the AT is, what a through hike is, what your gear is, all the stuff, and then go into all the, all the towns, all the features, all the way through the book. What's cool about it is you can open it up anywhere and just kind of get into it. You don't have to, you don't have to start from the beginning and start reading it, especially if you're somebody who's already spent time on the AT. It's a great thing to remember what the AT was like. But keeping it all sequential and really making it an armchair through hike where you can basically through hike without having to leave, just with this book.
When you talked about preparation for the hike, I wondered when I was reading about your story and watching some of the videos that you share on your social media pages, I was wondering, you plan and prepare and you've learned to pack and you've had experience with this in your lifetime. Was there anything when you were out on the trail, either one of you or both of you, that you were thinking, wow, I'm so glad I brought this, or dang it, I forgot such and such?
Oh, let me think.
Surely.
Well, I did bring my journal and a book, and I remember, I was really glad that I brought that. I wrote every night, and I loved having a book to be able to unwind with. And then my favorite piece of equipment, which it was unexpected, was my long titanium spoon. And it was like the long one, so you could get down in like peanut butter jars with. And being like,
get to the last bit.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I loved that. I don't know if there was.
And would you have thought that would be something that was so valuable to your? Yeah.
No. I thought it would be like my pillow or something, but
right.
You end up using other things like jackets and stuff. So
yeah. How about you, Josh?
I mean, for me, I guess I knew I would need it, but was so grateful was just this wool sweater. I mean, having wool, literally, because I spent all my years on the AT during the summer on the off season, so we weren't surrounded by thru hikers while we were out there enjoying ourselves and doing our thing. And I'd spent a lot of time being cold, but I did not realize I was going to be cold my entire thru hike. I mean, with the exception of a week in New York and New Jersey, I mean, there wasn't a morning I woke up where it wasn't tough to be like, crap, I got to get out of the sleeping bag. And so carrying a real 100% wool sweater that kind of always made that barrier for me ended up being the most clutch piece of gear I had. I carried it the whole way, which you wouldn't think you need a thick wool sweater the whole time. But when you're trying to get your layering right, you got to have your hard shell, you got to have your mid layer, your base layer. That mid layer ends up being the most important part for me. And I wasn't expecting to have to rely on that thing as much as I did.
So then, Amber, you were hot because you were wearing your rain gear to avoid the flies, and he was cold. If I had my choice, I'd rather be hot than cold. Do you guys have a preference?
Yeah, that's me.
Well, I prefer at home in our cabin. I prefer here to be cold. Yes. But on trail, hot is so much easier to deal with, especially when it just comes to, we had to be on schedule. I was in charge of making all the oatmeal for everybody. We had kind of a communal thing going on because I was like a team. So mornings are stressful when it's cold, always. And it's hard to get going, and I wouldn't, heat sucks though, but at least you can take clothes off and you can sweat and, and jump
somewhere in the middle is nice, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, let's keep it in the middle.
We can see that you are in an RV. And so whereabouts are you? Where are you calling in from here?
Yeah, we're in Madison County, North Carolina, close to the Tennessee border, in between Marshall and Hot Springs. Hot Springs is our closest intersection to the AT. The AT actually goes straight through downtown Hot Springs. It's kind of why we ended up out here, but we're up on a mountain at about 2,700 feet. And this is our camper that we had gotten to finish this book, because basically Amber hadn't finished the whole trail. And then, 10 years later, the camera gears changed. So we needed to do all these updates and go to these places. And so we had a less than 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time when we were doing the book, and we had to travel, and it was right in the middle of the pandemic. And we were like, you know what, we got to find a loan. We got to get a camper. This is the only way we can travel up to Vermont and back and down to Georgia and the places we needed to go in order to get everything we needed. And so whenever our nanny's here and we got to do something like this, this is a great satellite location for these kind of things.
I was going to say, your kids are being very well behaved for us to get through this amount of time without hearing them, but the nanny does help, right? Okay, let's take a break. I have a couple more questions for you post hike, now that, and post book as well. So we are talking with Josh and Amber. The title of their book is Discovering the Appalachian Trail. We'll be back in just a moment. We are back. We are talking with Josh and Amber. They are the authors of Discovering the Appalachian Trail. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to ask each of you, now that you're parents, you've written the book, you've accomplished this very big dream of both of yours to share the trail with others, even if they never get to visit it in person. I wondered, as I watched some of your videos with your children and the way that you authentically live your life and you share the woods with them as well, how did not only hiking the trail, but writing the book and collaborating together the way you did, meeting on the trail, how has that impacted your family? How does it impact you as parents?
Oh man, you want to take
I mean,
it?
it's easy for me. My through hike and the project I was doing, and I was facing all my student loan debt coming off a trail, and it was the first project I was ever going to do, and I didn't know how I was going to make money. There was all this stuff, and my entire backbone as an adult was built on that hike, and that has impacted everything about the way I'm able to live with this family and how we've been able to accomplish things from my side of stuff. Just being able to be the father I am really as a result of this whole thing, and that's obviously how we met. And so coming together and being able to take on this project after talking about it for years and being able to take our kids everywhere. I mean, it's just added the layers of the bond that, we have as a family. I mean, the fact our kids get to talk about being in this camper and going and making this book with us and being, basically we gave them author credits in the back of the book. It's just, it's in the dog also. It's just an awesome thing for our kind of family legacy together.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
The AT really shifted my steps in ways that I wasn't expecting. I was in an office job. I was very happy at it. But after the AT, I thought, you know what, I can't be inside anymore. And so when I moved to Asheville, met Josh, and we started looking for property because we wanted to be closer to the trail, wanted to be closer to nature. And we found our house, and we decided to buy this house because it looked like an AT shelter. It was this old 100-year-old cabin, and with views of the woods and a little stream right next to it and this gravel thing. And we were like, yep, this is home. And we can see the AT from our porch. And now raising the kids here and walking outside and teaching them about plants and teaching our water comes from the stream. We moved in when I was pregnant, so I was using an outhouse, and we didn't have lights and electricity. It's just kind of seeped into our everyday lives.
Well, that was evident to me. That's why I wanted to ask you. It was evident to me in the pictures and the videos that you share of your family life. I think it's not much different from how you grew up, but also just an added layer of that freedom that you have that maybe a lot of people don't have, but you created it for yourself. So I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. Well, thank you both for sharing your time and your story with me. And I just will continue to follow you and pay attention to your adventures and learn from them as an outsider looking in. That's what we hope for, right?
Thank you so much for having us.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take good care.